All right, what's going on, guys? Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Friday for another installment of the Red Friday Q&A live chat. Appreciate you all joining me tonight. Hope you're all having a great Red Friday off-season / playoff edition, because the Chiefs are not in the playoffs right now. Their off-season started early, but hey, that's okay. We will still continue to do these Red Friday Q&A live chats. You guys know the drill. You guys know how this works. Basically, I start off kind of shooting some topics out there, and then you guys basically get to take over the live stream. You guys get to ask whatever is on your mind. So for all of you on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, you guys get to control this show. You guys get to ask whatever you want. So get your comments, get your questions below, and we will get into your guys' comments and questions shortly. Obviously, the big news since we last did a live stream, Patrick Mahomes spoke to the media yesterday. This was kind of a surprise. Nobody saw this coming. This was his first media that he had done since the ACL tear in mid-December. It was exactly a month ago in a day. It was on December the 15th when he suffered that injury. And that's significant because people have been using that as a, 9-month timetable to when he'll possibly return to the gridiron, which is going to be right around week 1, maybe week 2. So certainly was interesting to hear from him. He talked about how he wanted to come back into the game and was asking if they could put a brace on him and all of that. But it's like, the season's already, technically it was still not over at that specific moment, but it was over. I mean, come on, what are you going to do at that point? So listen, it was good to hear from him. He didn't really give too much in terms of his recovery situation, just talked about where he'll be. Majority of his rehab process is going to be in Kansas City. Obviously, OTAs, phase 1 of OTA is going to be much different this year, given that he's injured, and they still don't know exactly how that's going to go, how they're going to go about things. The Chiefs don't have a quarterback for their offseason workouts. Dude, I never thought we would have to have a conversation about who Kansas City's quarterback was going to be in the offseason. I mean, they need somebody to throw the football to them, and right now they don't have anyone. Gardner Minshew's a free agent. Chris Oladokun is a free agent. My guess is Oladokun will come back as a practice squad quarterback, because I know this much. I know the Chiefs really value Oladokun as a practice squad QB. Now, a lot of you guys are going to hear that and say, who the hell cares? Well, teams care a lot. In today's NFL, Chris Oladokun is the perfect practice squad quarterback to have on your team. Listen, nobody ever wants to be the practice squad quarterback. Everybody wants to be the starter in the NFL, but sometimes you just got to know your place in the world. And Oladokun realizes, he had his opportunity, didn't really make didn't make much of it. And he might revert back to being a number 3 QB, which would be a practice squad quarterback. In today's NFL, with a lot of the running quarterbacks we have, Chris Oladokun is a great guy to have to prepare you. A lot of you guys may not know this, but Bill Belichick, he mentioned that back in, I can't remember what year it was. It was one of the Brady versus Manning AFC championship games. Bill Belichick gave the game ball to Damon Huard. Now, you all know who Damon Huard is. He played quarterback here in Kansas City for a couple of years. His big year was in 2006 when he filled in for Trent Green for, I think it was 8 games, and did really well. Only had 1 pick. He had like the second best quarterback rating, passer rating behind Peyton Manning. Oddly enough, the reason Belichick gave the game ball to Damon Huard after the AFC championship game is because Huard spent all week prepping the opposing defense, the Patriots defense, that is, in practice, getting them ready for Peyton Manning. His duty all week was to make sure the defense knew what to expect from Peyton Manning. He mimicked Peyton Manning. Now, in today's NFL, would Damon Huard be a good scout team quarterback? Probably not. Even if you take Damon Huard in his prime, because there are a lot more running quarterbacks, and Damon Huard would not be able to prepare a lot of defenses that way. So he was able to play quarterback, essentially being a practice squad quarterback at the right time. So I think Chris Oladokun will come back and be that practice squad quarterback. And by the way, I see a lot of you guys starting to come into the live stream. Greatly appreciate all of you guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Red Friday to all of you. Whatever questions, comments you all have, get to it, and I'll get to your guys' questions and comments shortly. But to go back to the whole Mahomes thing, because he's not going to be available, I would imagine Chris Oladokun, they're going to get him back pretty fast. Now, who's your number 2 quarterback going to be? That you do not know at the moment. And again, never thought that would be a big conversation we'd have in Kansas City in the Mahomes era, but that is where we are at the moment. Now, one big thing Patrick Mahomes was asked about is the future offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Because, listen, word on the street is Matt Nagy is not expected to come back, even if he does not get a head coaching offer from any of the teams that have a vacancy right now. So, Mahomes was then asked, what do you want in an offensive coordinator? And is there someone that you've got your eye on? Now, obviously, he's not going to name drop. He's not going to do that publicly. But he talked about how he wants someone that loves football. And then the 2 other things he really mentioned that stuck with a lot of people, someone that has new ideas and someone that's going to hold guys accountable. You guys tell me, who does that sound like he's describing? Sounds a lot like Eric Bieniemy. I mean, he's literally talking about holding guys accountable. What have we, you, me, everyone on sports talk radio in this town, anyone in the media, any Chiefs fan on social media, what have we all talked about for the last year, even longer? The current offensive coordinator does not hold guys accountable. And a couple of you guys in my comments were saying, oh, it sounds like Patrick Mahomes is, indirectly firing a shot at Matt Nagy. I didn't take it that way. And I don't think Patrick, listen, Patrick was later asked about Nagy. He says how much he loves Nagy and how much he's helped him as a person, as a player, and hopes that he gets another head coaching gig. So I don't think Patrick Mahomes was ever going to say anything negative about Nagy publicly or try to insinuate that at all. But look, as much as Nagy and Mahomes have a great relationship, Patrick Mahomes is a competitor. This guy's won 3 Super Bowls, and he wants more. And he's talked about wanting to be the best. And if you want to be the best, you do need a better offensive coordinator. Yes, I know a couple days ago, Alex Smith did an interview on Kay Adams' show talking about how he was kind of protecting Nagy a little bit. And I get it. He played under Nagy. But he talked about how it's Andy Reid's offense. Yes, it is Andy Reid's offense. Andy Reid is the play caller. But that doesn't mean the offensive coordinator is just some random bystander who cheers for the team when they're on the field. They still have a responsibility. They are the enforcer of this offense. They may not be the play caller, but they still have some duties and responsibilities to make sure this offense operates in the way Andy Reid wants it. And that's something Eric Bieniemy did. Okay, listen, I hear all these things. We don't need Eric Bieniemy. We need fresher ideas. We need we need a younger coach. What does that mean? Fresh ideas. Why do the Chiefs need a young offensive coordinator? What does that mean? Because that doesn't make any sense to me. The Chiefs do not need fresh ideas. They don't need a young offensive coordinator. They need an offensive coordinator that's going to guide the offense into the right direction. Listen, there's nothing wrong with going back to an offensive coordinator in which things were working. Because if you go back to Eric Bieniemy, you're going to go back to an offensive coordinator where the offense ranked in the top 6 all 5 years in points scored and total offense under Bieniemy. I just feel like people get I don't know. By the way, I know there's this really big deal publicly about, Mahomes and Bieniemy didn't like each other. I mean, they're in the locker room hugging in front of interviewers, the media. As soon as the game was over, Andy Reid's hugging Bieniemy. This past year, when the Bears visited the Chiefs for a preseason game, during pregame, you get to visit and mingle with the opposing coaches and players. Travis Kelce went up to Bieniemy and gave him a big hug. And I don't know if Mahomes had done that as well. I think they were. I don't think they got any pictures of it. They've got pictures of Kelsey doing it, and they've got Reed visiting with Bieniemy. There's also the former PR guy who I think is now vice president of operations for the Bears now. Ted Cruz is his name. Not that Ted Cruz, not the Texas Ted Cruz, a different Ted Cruz. Their last names are spelled differently, by the way, but they visited with him too. So that's what they do in pregame and postgame too sometimes. But the idea that the Chiefs don't like Eric Bieniemy, I will tell you right now, is 100% false, and I have that on good authority. I mean, listen, I know there was this article out there that was deleted real quickly afterwards about, you know, how upset Mahomes was with Bieniemy. Yeah, there was that one game against Indianapolis where Mahomes and Bieniemy were not happy with each other right before halftime. Those happen. I've seen that happen with Tom Brady on the sidelines. I've seen that happen with Roethlisberger on the sidelines. I mean, you've seen Peyton Manning. I mean, at one point was John at his teammates and coaches at one point. So these things have happened before. And I think people, if you think, 53 guys, 53 players, plus 16, practice squad QBs, as well as, anywhere from 15 to 20 coaches, you think they all get along and everything is roses and rainbows? You're just wrong. There's no way any team will operate that perfectly, from mid-July when training camp starts all the way to early February. Unfortunately, Kansas City's played a lot into early February. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you're going to clash and butt heads sometimes. Hell, you see it in training camp. Sometimes you see a couple of fights in training camp among teammates. Those things happen everywhere. Every training camp has that. So this idea that the Chiefs don't like Bieniemy is absolutely not true. And Joshua says Maxwell Harrison, New York plays. Yeah. Want to know why? Because the Chiefs basically telegraphed everything. People don't realize this. There is such thing as your opponent studying game film. And yes, I'm all for doing things until one team finds a way to stop it. But man, some of it's like quick passes, quick screens, and you telegraph things. You make it obvious. You had a rookie call out your offensive coordinator, not directly, but that's basically what he did. Kansas City needs to be much better than that. And again, if listen, there's nothing wrong with wanting Nate Shieldhouse. He's a great pass game coordinator. Unfortunately, he's not going to be an offensive coordinator. He's getting looks for head coaching opportunities elsewhere. I mean, if he's getting head coaching consideration, I don't think he's going to go be an offensive coordinator anywhere. I think he's going to stay where he is as a pass game coordinator if he does not officially get a head coaching offer this year. All right, a couple other quick notes. Divisional round. I gave you guys my picks on my Instagram, on all my social media, actually, about an hour ago. But if you missed it, I'll give you the recap of it right now. So the first game is Bills at the Broncos. I think this will be a low-scoring game. Denver's defense is great. Wish that was Kansas City's defense, but unfortunately it belongs to an AFC West rival. Buffalo, I don't think their defense is great per se, certainly not as great as Denver's or anywhere near that. But I think they do some good things. And the problem with Bo Nix is he has been wildly inconsistent, even against some bad teams like the Raiders, where he wasn't able to pull it out. And against the Chiefs, where, the Chiefs had a lot of backups on that Christmas Day game, and Bo Nix struggled in that one. So here's what it comes down to for me. Who do I trust more, Bo Nix or Josh Allen? Give me Josh Allen. He won his first road playoff game last week. I think he's going to make it 2 for 2 this postseason. 49ers at the Seahawks. This is going to be very interesting. The Seahawks are still 7-point betting favorites, even with the report of an oblique injury. And I know Darnold said he's going to play. I'm curious how that occurred, because this is a team coming off a bye. And that became a really big deal. And it happened, on the last day of practice, because Thursday is the last day of practice. Friday is a walkthrough. Tomorrow's the game. Now, fortunately for them, they don't have to do any traveling. That can only help more than hurt, given that you don't have to do any of the travel stuff. But that's a little weird. I'm still going to stick with Seattle, though. I think Seattle's defense is heavily underrated. I think Darnold will be okay. And listen, I think it's going to be a great game. I think this will be the opposite of the Buffalo and Denver game. The Buffalo-Denver game is going to be a low-scoring game. Wouldn't surprise me if that's like a 13-7, 13-10 game. This one, I would not be surprised if both teams score in the 30s. I would not. Sunday is the Texans visiting the Patriots. I would not be surprised if this is also a low-scoring game from the AFC side. Houston's defense is great. Danielle Hunter's great. I mean, one of the best edge rushers in the game right now. And just everything that that defense really has. Henry To'o, Jalen Petrie, Kamari Lassiter, Aziz Al-Shaair, Damian Clark, Will Anderson. So many great guys on that defense. The Patriots defense, to me, is underrated. I don't think that Patriots defense gets a lot of respect, not because of what they did last week. Listen, that Chargers game is not a proper measuring stick. That's a Chargers team that had a banged up offensive line. They found a way to get through for a majority of the season thanks to their defense and Herbert at times, who would pull through in the fourth quarter of games. But eventually we knew it was going to catch up to them, and we saw it last week. But that Patriots defense doesn't get taught. Everyone talks about Mike Vrabel. Everyone talks about Drake May and Diggs and the rest of that offense. And having Gonzalez back is going to help. But that defense is not getting the respect it deserves publicly. I would not be surprised if this is another low-scoring game. I also, kind of like Bo Nix, I don't trust CJ Stroud much. He's kind of been hot and cold ever since his rookie season, and I don't know why. So give me the Patriots. And then the last one, this one I'm excited for. Rams and Bears. I like both teams from an objective standpoint, story-wise. The Ben Johnson thing, I've been a big fan of Ben Johnson and what he's done with the Bears. Now suddenly Ben Johnson is a villain because of the handshake with Matt LaFleur saying F the Packers. Well, it turns out, Matt LaFleur is good friends with Sean McVay, and I believe LaFleur's son is a coach on the Rams. So that's a thing that's out there, according to Peter Schrager. That's interesting. But, drama and storylines out of the way. I still like what Ben Johnson's done. I love Caleb Williams and his turnaround story. I really like what is going on with Matthew Stafford. A year ago, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, 11 months ago, everyone was talking about how Stafford might be done with the Rams. He comes back. They get Devontae Adams, which was a huge acquisition. And I told you guys right away, that Rams offense is going to be good in the passing game, and they are. I like Chicago. They're a good team, but that Rams offense is going to be too much for the Bears to handle. So I'm taking the Rams to win the last playoff game of the weekend. So those are my 4 picks for the wild card game. The divisional round games. And then real quickly, before I turn it over to you guys for questions, I want to put out the draft talk real quickly here, because I know a lot of you guys are going on it. We've been talking a lot about the draft this week. My 2 guys that I'm really zeroing in on the most, Ruben Bain Jr. and Jeremiah Love. Those are the 2 guys I like the most. If those guys are not available, I would not be opposed to David Bailey. If he's not available, then you might need to consider trading down. How far down? Well, it depends who's willing to trade up. Ruben Bain Jr. would be great to have on this defensive line with Karlaftis, with Jones. If Omar Norman-Lott can stay healthy, that's huge. Ashton Gelati will be part of your rotation. That's going to be a good key player for that defensive line mix. But if Jeremiah Love were to come in, and I know everyone is nervous about whether or not this could be Clyde Edwards-Helaire 2.0. Listen, man, if there's a good running back available for you at number 9, you take him. I think Kansas City needs that right now for some balance on this offense. Patrick Mahomes could use it, or whoever the week 1 quarterback is going to be. So if that's If Ruben Bain Jr. is not available, give me Jeremiah Love. I'll take Ruben Bain before Love. What are the odds of both of them being available at 9? That's a good question, especially now with Dante Moore out of the draft. I would not be shocked if the Saints took Alvin Kamara's replacement, trying to prepare for life after Kamara. I would not be shocked if the Saints took Jeremiah Love. Ruben Bain Jr. to the Chiefs, I am in love with that idea, 100%. So, all right, you guys now get to control the discussion here. Jerry was a race car driver on Instagram, on TikTok. Says, no, we need Eric. Chiefs need Eric. MW Mom 26 says, EB will have learned a lot from his time. Well, yes, certainly. And this whole situation, again, people are wondering, do they like him? Do they hate him? No, they don't hate him. That's a fallacy. The Chiefs were in the top 6 in total points scored and total yards under Eric Bieniemy. Just think about that one for a moment. All right, let's go to Instagram here. What's up, Kat? Would you give up the Super Bowl and the playoffs this year in order to restructure and have a chance at the playoffs and Super Bowls for the next 5 years? Also, hire back EB right now. Meow. So hold on. Would I give up the Super Bowl and the playoffs this year? I mean, that's. I think to your point, that's what the Chiefs. I mean, they don't have a choice. There's not going to be any playoffs. But I think that's the point of your comment, though. So yeah, I mean, listen. If you bring back Eric Bieniemy, I guess it was worth the 6-11 record. Not that it's ever worth it for any team to go 6-11, but when your season does not end in mid-February and it ends in mid-December, well, you have the opportunity to finally work on your coaching staff. That's not something the Chiefs ever get to do when finishing your season in February 3 years in a row. There are disadvantages when you finish the season in February. You're picking 31st or 32nd every time. 3 years in a row, to be exact, 32nd pick. And then the coaching staff. Most coaching staffs for both the NFL and college football are already put together. There might be some guys available, but in general, you don't really have a lot of options in February. You just don't. By the way, shout out to Kat. She was in the Chiefsaholic documentary on Amazon Prime, and I got to meet her at one of the Chicken and Pickle events this year for the Huddle Show. Super, super sweet gal. So if you guys ever see her, don't be afraid. Say hi. They did not do her right in that documentary because she sent barbecue to that bank that Chiefsaholic robbed, just to prove that, hey, listen, not all of us are like that, because they all probably had negative ideas about Chiefs fans and whatnot in that Oklahoma bank and all. But they should have mentioned that in the documentary, and they never did. So I'll always appreciate Kat as the gal in the documentary that proved that, hey, not all Chiefs fans are crazy. Not all of us bet a bunch of money and rob banks so we can attend games. All right, let's see. Okay, let's go to YouTube, Facebook, and X. Joshua says, I'd like to see Jacoby Brissett as a backup quarterback. Yeah, he's got a lot of starting experience. Would not be a bad idea. Might be a good idea to draft a late round quarterback. Yeah, we talked about that earlier this week. I'm not opposed to them drafting a quarterback. However, not right now with the limited draft picks you have. The Chiefs don't have a lot of draft picks. I think they have 6. Now, if you trade Trent McDuffie, and I know nobody likes that idea, but we've seen the Chiefs trade guys away before. If you have Trent McDuffie on the trade block, he might be able to get you some draft capital in return. So that's something to consider. Jacob says, what about running back and quarterback? What about them? I mean, we talked about Jeremiah Love. I don't know what your options are with free agency. As far as cornerback goes, they got Christian Fulton coming back for another year. He looked good in the games he played. Noel Williams looks like a guy that could hold his own. You're going to lose Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, probably. You might also lose Trent McDuffie. It's going to be a tough offseason for the cornerback room. But hey, listen, 4 or 5 years ago, when the Chiefs drafted a bunch of defensive backs, their only experienced player at quarterback was L'Jarius Sneed and Rashad Fenton. They traded Fenton during that season. But all the other quarterbacks, they held their own. Josh Williams was great his rookie year. Jalen Watson was good. Trent McDuffie was solid right off the bat when he was back from injury. I mean, those are some... That just tells you how well coached the defense is. It's not easy to have that many rookies at that position. So I think the Chiefs will be okay if they have to move on from McDuffie, Watson, and Williams. Not ideal, but the salary cap situation is not great at the moment. So they've got to do something about it. Yeah, accountability. That's, again, when Mahomes said that, it's like it's almost as if Mahomes read what everyone was saying on X or on all of social media. What's the chances we try and get Hall or Pitts? I assume you mean Breece Hall and Kyle Pitts, or do we draft a running back and a tight end? I don't think the Chiefs are going to go after a tight end in the offseason. I've said this before. I think Travis Kelce will return. Noah Gray is under contract. He signed an extension the year before. I know they like Robert Tonyan. They drafted Jared Wiley, who they haven't used much. And they also have Jake Briningstool, who looked good in training camp for them this year. I think those are going to be your 5 tight ends going into OTAs and training camp. So I don't think they're going to touch the tight end position. When Kelce, the year after, yes. Next year, yes, I think so. Running back, Breece Hall is going to want a big contract. I don't think Kansas City can afford that. Otherwise, the Chiefs would have given up a 3rd-round pick to get him, and then they would have re-signed him. But they didn't end up going that route. Yeah, running back's going to be a tough position. I don't know what they're going to do. I think they'll bring back Kareem Hunt, but they don't want him to be the primary running back. Kareem Hunt, remember a few years ago when the Chiefs had, it was longer than a few years ago, but when the Chiefs had Jamal Charles and Thomas Jones in 2010, Jamal Charles was, the main running back who was 3rd in the league in rushing. Oddly enough, he was 2nd on the team in carries, which is a whole nother topic, but Thomas Jones was better for these short yardage situations. And I was really hoping Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt would have formed that kind of a duo this year. Unfortunately, we never got that. So I think they bring back Kareem Hunt, and they'll probably draft a running back within the first 3 rounds. Rich says we can restructure contracts. You can, but you can't rely on that forever and ever. I mean, listen, you've been restructuring Patrick Mahomes' contract every year. That just kicks the can down the road. It'll only work for so long until it really negatively impacts your cap. And Frank Graham was talking about that in the Chiefs-Titans game on that broadcast. Chris Jones, they in his first offseason with the new contract, first full offseason with the new contract, they restructured his contract. I mean, that's not ideal. The Chiefs keep finding themselves in that spot, and that's not something... players also have to, you can't just say, hey, I'm going to restructure your contract and your contract and your contract. No, they've got to be open to it. They have to say yes to it. Thoughts on Kingsbury? I like Kingsbury. I just don't, he's not an Andy Reid. He's not an Andy Reid connected guy. He's a Patrick Mahomes connected guy, a very well connected guy to Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think he's going to come to Kansas City. I know that's something Chiefs fans were hoping for, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Listen to this originality. Ryan says, how long have you been a Chiefs fan? Since 2019? Never heard that one before. Ryan, if you do the, a little effortless research on a magical website called Google, you'll see this podcast has been around since 2007. And I posted pictures of myself before then, so you'll see pics of me wearing Chiefs gear in my younger days. I love the idea that Chiefs fans didn't exist until 2018, 2019. So original. So original. It's not like they didn't break the record for loudest stadium in the world in 2013 and 2014. Yeah. Somehow you were not aware of that until 2018. I'm talking about you, Ryan. You and all the other people who believe in that original narrative. At this stage of his career, Reed isn't going to change his approach to players in terms of his coaching style. All the more reason this team needs a guy like EB to come in and tighten up the ship. That's why he might continue looking for his inner circle. Listen, when he replaced Bob Sutton, he went back to someone that he had worked with in Philly, Spags. So it makes sense. With Mahomes being on the downside of his career, he needs a stud running back. I don't know if he's on the downside of his career. Listen, he's about to. Is he 30 or 31? I think he's 30. It's not quite old. It's not young either. You know, he still has plenty of good years left. When you're winning, time flies, man. Time really flies. Any stubbornness is going to ruin our team in future. Listen, Andy's got an ego. There's no question about it, but he's earned that. I mean, sure, his play calling in certain situations have been very questionable, but he's also had some great play calls as well in the past. People only talk about the play calls that don't work. Nobody wants to talk about the play calls that work for a long period of time. Because you know what's so weird is, you know, when the Chiefs start to kind of fall out of the playoff picture, I heard all of these people calling into local talk radio. I saw all of these comments on social media. People were saying, now I know why the Eagles fired Andy Reid. Really? You're going to bring that narrative to the table after 3 Super Bowl wins and 3 straight Super Bowl appearances? Now we're going to have this discussion? Like, come on. Nobody was saying anything about Reid getting fired by the Eagles when they were going to 3 straight, when they were going to 7 consecutive conference title games. Come on. What about Mike LaFleur for OC? I mean, listen, he's done a good job with the Rams, but that's not an Andy Reid guy. Again, I think it'd be great to answer your question, Joshua, but not an Andy Reid guy. Can't go against Josh Allen in the playoffs? Yeah. Up until the AFC Championship game. Hey-o. But no, I actually do think that the Bills break through this year. I think this is their year. If you don't do it this year, man, when are you going to do it? Not sleeping on the Bears. Listen, that's going to be a good game. If there's a game I'm not very confident in picking, I was really confident about all 6 games last week. Hence why I went 6-0. But this weekend, if there's one game that I'm most uncertain about, it'd be almost all of them. The Bears and Rams one, it's gonna be interesting. But I'm gonna go with the Rams. Because I cannot vote against that offense. Seahawks and 49ers, the oblique injury might concern people a little bit, but Sam Darnold's going to play. Now, the 2 AFC games, I think they're both going to be low scoring. And when you have a low scoring game that's going to come down to the wire, it really does turn into one of those where it's like, you don't even know how it's going to go. So and for the sake of my undefeated streak in the playoffs, I'm more nervous about the AFC games than the NFC games. I'm confident in the 2 NFC games. I'm sticking with the Rams and Seahawks. I'm picking the Bills and the Patriots. Not too confident though. Not too confident. I'm going to bet on it, but I'm not betting too much money. Do we trade Chris Jones or McDuffie? No one's going to trade for Chris Jones with that contract. No one. Trent McDuffie is way easier to trade because he doesn't have a long-term deal. He's under the 5th-year option. So that is an easy player to get rid of than Chris Jones. Who will be the tight end next year? If Travis retires, I think they like Noah Gray. I think it is time for Noah Gray to take that next big step. Would you let walk out of the upcoming free agents that we have? Oh, I mean, I don't think it's by choice, but I think there are a lot of guys you let walk. Let me pull up the list in front. Obviously, you're going to cut Juwan Taylor and Mike Dana, but in terms of guys that are not under contract, let me pull that list up in front of me here. Isaiah Pacheco, I would let go. Hate to say it. Loved his first 2 years in Kansas City, but I think it's time to move on. Mike Kelly, I do think it's time to part ways with. Charles Omenihu, I was excited when he came back because he was going to finally play a full season, but we never saw that Charles Omenihu that we saw 2 years ago when he only played, almost half a season. So I think it's time to go move away from him. That's it, though. Trying to keep Matt Ariza, James Winchester, two key guys on your special teams. Brian Cook, Leo Chenal, Jalen Watson, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton. Man, I really hope they find a way to keep Tyquan Thornton. That's my number one pick to, if I could protect one guy in free agency, I'd pick Tyquan Thornton over Travis Kelce. I just wish they would use him more, but that's a different discussion to have. If Bane is there when we draft, I think you have to 100% go with him, but if not, go with Love still there. 100% agree. 100%, Brad. That's kind of how I feel right now. Please get the all-time tackler in team history as a special guest, please. I've tried. Mahomes should have not played after rolling his knee the first time. Are you talking the first time you're referring to 2019 when he had that knee injury? That was against Denver. I just lost all the TikTok comments. Is Hill coming back? Tyreek Hill for 2 years has been hinting at wanting to reunite. I'm still not sure why we gave up Carson Steele. I know he was relegated to the practice squad. He was not good with ball security. He was great in the preseason, but when he faced, a starting defense, he could not protect the football. That was a really big. He had like 3 fumbles in the first half of last season. And we didn't really see much of him after that. We saw him in that Week 18 game against Denver when the Chiefs rested all their starters, but that was it. That is all we saw. Appreciate it, money. With Dante Moore going back to school, how does that affect the Chiefs? And yeah, we kind of went over that earlier, Aaron, but that definitely does have an impact. The odds of both Bane and or Love being available at 9 does get slimmer. Because if the Jets are not able to keep Breece Hall, I think they'll take Jeremiah Love. I think they still keep the number 2 pick. And if the Jets don't take Jeremiah Love, the Saints will. So I think there are 2 teams ahead of Kansas City right now that will seriously consider taking Jeremiah Love. Chiefs will be back next season winning the Super Bowl. Okay, good call, Jeremy. I like it. Luke says, in my opinion, I wish they used Tyquan Thornton more. Everyone wishes that. Everyone wishes that. Let's see. I checked TikTok. Let me check Instagram. Kat says, let's pull my boy Snead back in too. It's possible. I don't know, Kat. I really like L'Jarius Sneed and what he did during his time in Kansas City, but he's missed a ton of time with the Titans. Like that trade between the Chiefs and the Titans. I mean, the Chiefs won that by a million miles. Like it's not even close. How many games was Sneed even available for? He played 5 games last year and 7 games this past year. Yeah, he hasn't even played at the very least half of a season. I mean, I get you can't play half a season because there are odd number of games now, but still, you get the idea. It's like he can't even play at least 8 games in the 2 years he's been away from the Chiefs. I hate to say it, but I say no. I say no. If he stays healthy, that's a fantastic return. But I'm not banking on that. He's missed a lot of practice too. Like he's been on the shelf for a long time with this Titans team. And I guarantee you the Titans regret trading for him 100%. And plus he's kind of like going through a little bit of he's under investigation right now with his little, I don't know what it was off the field, but That's something he's dealing with. Finally on TikTok. Yeah, we started doing TikTok live streams this week. Jets signed Bailey Zappi. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously not going to be their starter. Any spicy margaritas in my future? Yeah, I know exactly what you're referring to. The boy. Know exactly what you're referring to. I have a question for you. Can Patrick Mahomes come back from losing? Yeah, of course he can. Why wouldn't he? Love looks like Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. I mean, if that's who you get, if that's the type of running back you get coming to Kansas City, that'd be great. And if Kareem Hunt's still on the team as a number 2 back, perfect. Yeah, we didn't mention this on this live stream, Joshua. Yeah, Todd Pinkston, we got word yesterday, got fired by the Chiefs. So the Chiefs fired Connor Embry, their wide receivers coach, a former running back coaching wide receivers, and they fired Todd Pinkston, a former wide receiver coaching running backs. Imagine that. Listen, the Tyreek Hill thing, man, I don't know what's going to happen. Because I never answered that question on TikTok. Look, he's probably going to get let go by the Dolphins. And I don't like to talk about players and their personal business. Man, it's like, we know he's got a bunch of kids. That's not at all an easy life to maintain. So, and they're with, different women, different relationships. So he's going to need every single penny, nickel, and dime he can make from any team in the remainder of his career. That's more important to Tyreek Hill than winning a championship. Now, I don't know how much Tyreek Hill makes off the field from endorsements, his podcast. Is he still doing his podcast? I don't know. I don't know how much he's making from all of that stuff. But man, I'm not opposed, but the Chiefs aren't paying him a lot of money. Like, if Tyreek Hill wants money, Kansas City ain't the spot for you. I mean, the Chiefs might not be able to keep Tyquan Thornton because of their cap situation. That's how tough of a situation they're in right now with the cap. Yes, they'll restructure, they'll cut guys, then we're going to wait for the cap number, but it's not going, like, the Chiefs are not going to have that much wiggle room in free agency. They'll sign guys in free agency, but you're not going to get, you're not going to get Tyrann Mathieu, a type of football player, to come into your team. You're just not. And I think at the end of the day, with Tyreek, it's like, yeah, he's coming off that injury too, and he's on, the wrong side of 30, which I hate saying that. Everyone's like, well, this player's not getting any younger. No one's ever getting any younger. Nobody. Find me one person that got younger in their career. I know I've talked about Kelsey. He looked younger, not by that much. I mean, he's still a fairly old fella, but for NFL standards, to be clear. But yeah, coming off a torn ACL for Tyreek Hill, and he probably wants a lot of money. Yeah, that will hurt for sure. Yeah, Ahmad Hardy, that'd be a good player to get, but we'll see. You got a tour bus ready for the live road show next year? Okay. Every single one of you guys, it feels like every single one of you guys, every podcast or every live stream I do, you guys ask about the live show, because I've been teasing for a while. Well, first of all, I just wanted to get feelers out there. I asked if you guys would be interested if we did a podcast with a live studio audience and if we had special guests as well. We got an overwhelming of the majority of the answers were yes. We're still like in the beginning stages of this. I will tell you right now, I did have a meeting with someone this morning regarding a live show, and nothing's final, but we're hoping that we can make it happen. I'll tell you this much. There is very strong interest. The most I can say is if this does get across the finish line, we have the special guests ready. We have the setup ready, as well as the venue and location. but there are still certain behind the scene logistics that need to get finalized, and that we have not gotten there yet. I'm hopeful. And listen, if this is a success, if we've got a good turnout for this, and I will say this is going to be a ticketed event. Now what the price is going to be, I can't say that right now because again, we don't know if this is going to happen or not. But if this is a success, if we get a good turnout for this live podcast, then yeah, we might end up doing more of these. You should do live show tailgating at Chiefs home games. That's not going to work. Make sure it's a place where Bob can say fuck. We got to keep it family friendly at these places. Or at least I'm going to try to. But Jacob, to do tailgating, that's not going to work. The reason is the Wi-Fi in those places. And plus, people, when they're tailgating, they're blasting music, which is great and all. That's great with the tailgating atmosphere. But that's going to then, like, my microphone's going to pick that up, and that's copyright. So we can get busted for that. For those now, if you have like a 5-second clip and there's music in the background, copyright holders don't give a shit about that stuff. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know if you guys are fans of Survivor or The Challenge. They're basically competition reality shows. I listen to a couple of podcasts that recap episodes of Survivor and The Challenge. And both of those podcasts, so the Survivor podcast I listen to is Rob Has a Podcast. He was just on Survivor. What's that show called that Donna Kelsey was on? The Traders. So he's done a phenomenal job with his podcast and the growth of that podcast over the years. And then there's one called Challenge Mania. I've actually attended a Challenge Mania live. Challenge Mania and Rob Has a Podcast, they've expanded to the point where they go across the country with special guests, with former Survivor and Challenge players, and do live shows with them. Now, obviously, we're not going to go across the country because we're not big in, New York or anything like that. But my vision is that, hey, we could maybe do shows in the Kansas City area. And if the show becomes even bigger, if the podcast continues to grow, and it would depend on how much it grows, then we can branch out and do shows in, Manhattan, Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, Wichita. And on the Missouri side, go to places like Columbia or Joplin, maybe even Branson, St. Louis. Again, that's if the show grows there, but that's a vision I've always had for a long time. It's just, it might finally come to fruition this year to start locally. And if we hit home runs with local shows, then yeah, that might be. I will say this. There were actually 2 businesses when I asked about doing live shows. There are 2 businesses that reached out, but they're not in the Kansas City area. I'm not going to go into specifics, but I just told them, I'm like, hey, I want to keep an open line of communication. I just don't know if right now is the right time because, by the way, who here lives? How many people are watching across all social media? Close to 200 people. Okay. How many of you guys live near or around Lawrence? Now, if you live in the Kansas City area, I'm not counting that. I know Lawrence is kind of tied into Casey, but who's in Lawrence or Topeka or Manhattan, Wichita on the Missouri side? Who's in Jefferson City, Columbia? I know those 2 are kind of close to each other. St. Louis or Joplin, Branson, Springfield, those cities. And again, I don't have the number, but because I feel like I have a lot of followers in Wichita. I feel like if we did a live show in Wichita, that might work. Now, there's a lot I would need to figure out. Plus, the other thing is, how many former players can I get to Wichita? That's not going to be easy. Get Taylor Swift to show up and fill Arrowhead and never have to work again. Yeah, as simple as just calling Taylor and being like, hey, T-Sizzle, want to be the special guest of my podcast? It's that easy, right? Listen, I love the enthusiasm from you guys. And by the way, the people who I'm communicating with for doing our first live show, they're aware of what you guys have had to say. I even told them, I'm like, every podcast, people are asking about the live show. It gets to the point where I can't really ignore it because it's happening every episode. So thank you guys. Please keep that going. And we need more of that from more of you guys. And if the first one is a hit, if it's a success, that might open up the door for us to do it again in the off season. When would the timing of this be? Yeah, see that I can't disclose that right now. I will say it'd be springtime, so it won't be too far into the off season. But and I told them today I'd like to have an official word by the end of the month because that will give us plenty of time to get the word out. Like of the Ozarks. That'd be a fun place to do a live podcast. You're 1:30 from Columbia. I assume you mean an hour and 30 minutes from Columbia. Okay. How about Orange County, California? We are followers of yours. Hubby grew up in Raytown. Well, hey, love to everyone in Orange County and in California. Unfortunately, I don't. Here's how that would work: is if we did road games. Now, doing podcasts, live show podcasts, the week of games, that would be difficult. That one would be a big challenge. But that's a possibility, Pamela. I appreciate the love from Orange County. Love back to you and your husband. Appreciate you guys listening. Yes. So, see, I can't really disclose much information right now, but I'm new to this. I don't know how all of this works between a podcast and a place of business, because a lot of people will go to like small theaters, bars, restaurants to do these types of podcasts. The venue we'd be using potentially, like, this would be a huge opportunity for a first ever live show. Like, wherever we go for our second live show won't be as big as this. And maybe it'll be an even bigger turnout. I don't know. I think it all depends on who our guests are, for sure. What are your top 3 favorite barbecue spots in Kansas City? So in no particular order: Joe's or County Ice if you're in downtown. Q39, Meat Mitch is good. Burnt Ends is underrated. Jack Stacks, they've got some good burnt ends there. Yeah, you asked for 3, I gave you 5. So Joe's or County Ice if you're in the downtown area, because that's owned by Joe's. Q39, Meat Mitch, Burnt Ends, and Jack Stack. There we go. Do a Jefferson City with Rusty Drewing. He got a lot of plays at the dealership. Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. I think I've seen. I can't remember which player it was. I think there have been a couple of players now that you kind of just alluded to it, that have done dealership commercials there. If you ever did a live show, I would be there in a heartbeat. Well, thank you. I would love for all of you to be there. That's why I want to get the word out as early as possible. So that way you guys can know and plan ahead. Because some of you guys have said that you're willing to travel for one of these, which again excites me. But those people who are not in KC would need ample time to figure that out for sure. Do I think coaches use or will use AI to create plays? You know what I'm curious. Like, I remember playing Madden many years ago. And I remember you could create like your own play. Like, you could draw your own route tree and everything. I'm wondering like why we don't see like how difficult is it for EA Sports to be a sponsor of like one of the pregame shows and use Madden for like field description analysis. I don't know. I'm surprised, but will they use AI to create plays? I guess someday we might see that. Are we trading McDuffie? We could get pieces of McDuffie. What do you mean we could get pieces of McDuffie? I don't know what that means. I do think they might trade McDuffie though. SN Georges. I do think that'll happen. Thoughts on Kayla Harrison falling out of UFC 324? I was pissed. Listen, I've been kind of falling out of the UFC over the last few years because I'm not a big fan of this ESPN deal. Like I'm willing to spend money on pay-per-views, but not if the pay-per-view quality is garbage. Like from 2016 to like 2021-ish, dude, I bought every single UFC pay-per-view that existed, unless I was out of town. I had no problem spending money on that, man. I love the UFC. But I called ESPN. I'm like, hey, this has been like 3 pay-per-views in a row where I can't even watch the pay-per-view. Like the quality keeps freezing up. And I only have evidence of one of the pay-per-views because I actually filmed my TV every time it froze up, and they finally gave me a full refund. But then they were like, if this happens again, we can't give you a full refund. We're just telling you now. I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to stream your pay-per-views or buy from you anymore. I'll find them on cracked streams or wherever. I straight up told them that. I wasn't going to lie. And they know that people listen, if you're ESPN Plus or if you're Dana White, and I know Dana White is super against people who stream pay-per-views. And by the way, this goes for the NFL also, because the NFL requires you to have Amazon Prime, YouTube TV, Peacock, all of these things so you can catch every single game possible. Netflix. Dude, not everyone has the luxury of being able to afford all of those streaming services. And I find it odd that an entity, yes, I know the NFL is the biggest entertainment business out there, but how in the hell can the NFL get away with partnering with so many different streaming services? If I had a streaming service, like if I had Netflix as a sponsor, in the contract, Netflix would say, hey, you cannot have any promotion, any partnership with any other streaming service, which makes sense. But the NFL can, promote, they can partner with every streaming service. I mean, is it because they're the NFL and they're, the king of TV ratings and all of that? I guess, but dude, that just makes no sense. How can they get away with that? Chiefs fans since Len Dawson and Otis Taylor? Hell yeah, pops. Hello from Alabama. Shout out to Alabama. AI refs? We might get that in baseball before any other sport. That would make sense. If you buy Sunday ticket, you should get all games regardless. NFL already getting paid. Yeah, I mean, if you have NFL Plus, you get every game. Now, the problem is, or at least as far as I know, NFL Plus is only a phone app. Samsung TV does not have NFL Plus. So you still have to get all the other streaming services. Plus, I have to have NFL Plus anyway to be able to go back and watch games, not just Chiefs games, but other games, and then watch it from those fancy high angles and whatnot. That's what NFL Plus offers. NFL cash register never stops. Nope, it does not. How far am I on Final Fantasy 14? Yeah, I'm actually about to wrap up Heaven's Word. So I'm doing New Game Plus just to give myself a refresher on Final Fantasy 14. I stopped at Shadowbringers. That was my last one. But yeah, man, I mean, I have a life, so I don't get to play video games as much as I'd like, but dude, Final Fantasy 14, it is a long ass game because it's an MMO. But dude, it is so fun. It is worth it. People say that's not a real Final Fantasy, but in my opinion, it is. This is the part where we go off the rails with the Red Friday Q&A live chat. We start talking about things that are not Chiefs related. That's my favorite part of the Red Friday Q&A live chat. If Nagy doesn't get a head coaching job and doesn't get an OC offer, oh boy, if Nagy does not get a head coaching offer and does not get an offensive coordinator job from another team, oh boy, what does that tell you about Nagy? Do you think he can go back to being Patrick's quarterback's coach? What's funny is I was thinking if things go that route, would he maybe do that? I don't know. Listen, I don't mind Nagy as a quarterback's coach. Yeah, sure. But boy, if he does not get an OC job after not getting a head coaching job, boy, like I don't even know how you could ever get a head coaching job ever again. I just don't. What happens if the defensive coordinator gets a head coaching job? Well, they would probably promote Joe Cullen. Joe Cullen was a former defensive coordinator, and he was being interviewed for the Commanders' defensive coordinator position. So Alex Smith as quarterback's coach, he doesn't want to do it. He said so in the interview this week. And I've told you, Alex Smith said the same thing this week in the interview, but I said it for a long time. Man, he's got 3 kids, and he's going from a media job to suddenly coaching. If he goes that route, that'd be a big shift. Nick Wright was talking about Mike Tomlin, and his prediction is Mike Tomlin will join the Eagles next year. But Nick Wright did add this. Nick Wright said that if Mike Tomlin takes a year to work in TV, he might not work in the NFL ever again. Because when you work a TV job, sure, you're not making as much money, according to Nick. And that's true to an extent. Depending on the job Tomlin would get, dude, look how much Tony Romo and Tom Brady are making. Tom Brady is a 7-time Super Bowl champion. Tony Romo was a playoff choke artist. But Tony Romo is making a lot of money doing what he does. And people don't like Tony Romo. Now, if you're not a color analyst, but you're working a desk job like for CBS Sports, like what Matt Ryan was doing, now he's moving on from it. Like what Alex Smith, Rex Ryan, Randy Moss are doing now, Jason Kelsey. Dude, those jobs not only still pay very well, but you're only doing like a fraction of what you would do if you were a coach. Dude, coaching sucks. You don't have time for your family. You don't have time to have fun. The former players and coaches who are in sports broadcasting, and I'm including Barstool Sports under that because I know they're not technically sports broadcasting, but they're still the media. Dude, I guarantee you, like, John Gruden is having fun doing what he's doing. Now, would John Gruden want to coach again? Probably. But would he be willing to go back to those grueling coaching hours? I don't know, man. You only get 24 hours a day. And 19 of those hours are dedicated to coaching. Seriously, I don't think a lot of you guys realize this. Like, the amount of time coaches spend on their duties and responsibilities as a coach, they don't have a life. Romo making more than he was. Yeah, the only time you make more in TV than you would as a coach or a player is if you're a color analyst like Tom Brady and Tony Romo are. I'm sure Jason Kelsey, Randy Moss, Alex Smith, I'm sure they're all making good money, but not as much. Like, if you really want a home run broadcasting job as a former player or a coach, being a color analyst is the place to go. That's where they make the most money. Final Fantasy VII is the GOAT. No, dude, that game's awesome, man. I love Final Fantasy VII. That was the first Final Fantasy I played. Yeah, I remember John Gruden, when he was the color analyst for Monday Night Football, he was making $6.5 million a year. And he was, keep in mind, that was after he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs when they beat the Raiders. And that was, mid 2000s. Today, if Mike Tomlin wanted to coach, wanted to be a color analyst for Sunday Night Football, just hypothetical, dude, he can easily make $20 million a year, maybe even more. I don't know. I mean, the more recent you are, the more you can make. Because, like, and this is no disrespect to Jason Kelsey whatsoever, but Jason Kelsey was a former center. Like, who the hell talks about the center position in football? Let's be honest. Only when they do bad things. So, in about 30 years, Jason Kelsey might not be someone that's needed on ESPN. And again, that's not an insult to Jason Kelsey. It's just, whoever, the Jason Kelsey is 25 years from now, they will probably have more value because they're more recent at the time. Bill Cowher, great head coach. Nothing bad to say about Bill Cowher at all. But at some point, Bill Cowher is not going to be interesting on TV. He'll eventually get old. But then there will also be a point where there will be an audience that's not going to know who the hell Bill Cowher is. So they'll have to do away with him and try to bring in, the Bill Cowher equivalency in 2040. And that guy will take his spot. You get the idea. So times change. And, the more recent you are and the more willing you are to go straight from being a former player or coach straight to broadcasting, networks are going to want you because you're very recent, you're very recognizable, and there will be a lot more money coming your way. Like, let me Google something. How much money does Chris Collinsworth make a year? He makes $4 million a year. When was the last time Chris Collinsworth played football? Because if he just retired from football, he would have made a lot of money. But no, the last time he played for the Bengals was 1988. Let me do another question. How much money does Troy Aikman, I can spell Aikman right, make a year with ESPN? He makes $18 million. Okay, that's more than I thought. This is according to Bleacher Report from this past September. Okay, that's more than I thought. Now, Troy Aikman has more Super Bowl hardware than Tony Romo. But because Tony Romo is more recent, and he was also a very recognizable, hell, he dated Jessica Simpson. Remember that? And his name was just through the roof at the time. How much does Tony Romo make? I know it was something ridiculous. Like Tony Romo earned the record. He makes $18 million also. Interesting. Okay, so Bleacher Report has the top 10 highest paid sports broadcasters. This was in September. Okay, so Aikman and Romo are tied at $18 million. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. Hold on, let me go back to the top 10. Where the hell's 10? Okay, I guess there's a three-way tie for 10. So Joe Buck, Al Michaels, and Shaq all make $15 million. Kirk Herbstreit makes $16 million. Pat McAfee makes $17 million. That's not it. I'm actually shocked that's not more. Now, that $17 million, is that just from, who is that from? Who's paying him $17 million? Is that ESPN for his show, for part of his show to be on ESPN? Or is he still on ESPN, his show? And he also does College Game Day. Obviously a very recognizable name and face. Romo and Aikman make $18 million. Charles Barkley, $21 million. That's not a shock at all. Who's number two? We know number one's Brady. Oh, number two is Tom Brady at $37.5 million. Who the hell's one? Oh, one is Stephen A. Smith at $40 million. Okay. Yeah, I know Stephen A. signed a new deal last year. So he's making $105 million in 5 years with ESPN, and he's got a 3-year, $36 million contract with Sirius XM also. Good for him. Good for Stephen A. Smith. That dude, he didn't even play, and he's getting all of that. Chase Daniel as a QB coach, yeah, he'd be good. But again, would he be willing to give up broadcasting or media for that? Post-game analysis guys on the field seems like a legit. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Doing games is hard. It's not as easy as it seems. The post-game stuff is a lot of fun. Hell, I like doing post-game with you guys because Hell, there's just more to talk about. Bills or Broncos? Bills. It's got to be a low scoring game, but I say Bills. Feet to the fire. Who would you say is a new OC, and who do you want? I think I want Bieniemy, but I think it's going to be either Bieniemy or Kafka. Would Andy fire him? No, because Nagy's not under contract. Okay. I think we are on, an hour and 11 minutes. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate you all joining me for this episode of the Red Friday Q&A live chat. If you enjoyed any part of this, please share it with your friends. If you miss any part of this live stream, it will be archived shortly on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Hey, greatly appreciate all of you guys on a Friday night. We don't have a lot of Chiefs news this week, so we kind of had to just makeshift some news for you guys. But I will say this to wrap up. Given that Monday's the 19th and teams are, they have more flexibility to do interviews and whatnot, I think that's when you can start to expect some news from Kansas City on the coaching front. So let's see who they interview. I think Nate Scheelhaase would make for a good offensive coordinator. I think Kafka would be a good OC, assuming he's not retained by Harbaugh. And then Eric Bieniemy, I would assume, wants to be an OC again. So we'll see what happens there. We'll probably start getting some news as early as Monday next week. All right, guys. I appreciate you all. I'm Farzin Vasugian. I'm out.